if there are more folks coming.
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time? So sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Do you know if there are more folks coming from your group, or is it maybe you today?
I think it might just be me today.
Okay, that's
Sorry.
great. No worries at all. So here's what I would like to do. Good. Okay. Alrighty. So rather than do a chat, no need to do a chat. But would one of you start with what is something new that you might be learning in your life right now? And either of you can go.
How to be a principal?
So Lori, tell Sarah your situation.
So our middle school, high school principal is going to be for some time due to an illness, and we're a small rural district. And whereas I've stepped in periodically to support principal, never actually had to do the whole thing, and have actually been really quite resistant to doing it when they've asked me to apply for it. But right now I don't have any choice. So I took over the secondary school during parent-teacher conferences and as we head to state, because Lapwai is all known about their basketball, right? So I've never done athletics, and I've, being a special ed director in school psych usually keeps me quite busy. So this additional workload is an opportunity for me to.
That's great. Thanks, Lori. Sarah, what about you?
That's a big one, Lori. I do not envy you. I do not think I'd ever want to be a principal. I feel like there's a lot of things I'm learning right now, but the first thing that came to my mind is actually not professional, but my son behind me is very obsessed with hockey and is just playing the game and loving it. And I'm having to learn all the rules and learn all about it, learn how to play goalie for him when he's not at practice. Hockey's on my mind right now. So that's what I learned.
That's pretty great. Three of my 4 kids played hockey. And when you're a hockey mom, you are a hockey mom, right?
Yeah. Well, I told him you had made a hockey reference, a goalie reference, research. And I told him about it, and he thought that was really cool. Yeah, I shared that with him. Yep.
Oh, that's fun. That's great. Yeah, I love hockey. Grew up with hockey, and my kids 3 of my 4 were hockey players, so that's pretty fun.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yes. Yeah, thanks. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to deepen our understanding about comprehension, and maybe in deepening that understanding, we may actually take some things away from our assessment system with comprehension, based on some of the things that we learned today. And then also being able to be sure that with comprehension, we are matching our assessment, the tool with the goal. Hi, Colleen. The assessment tool with the goal that we are trying to accomplish. So you know that we've been working in the reading comprehension blueprint all year. So today actually isn't about a chapter. It's about the end section of a lot of chapters. So the way that the Reading Comprehension Blueprint book works is it teaches what's the research, what is this thing, what's the research, and how do we implement it, and then how do we assess it. So at the back of many of the chapters are the assessment pieces for that strand in the rope. So we know that each of the chapters in the book is a strand. And if I want to know how might I assess text structure, at the end of that chapter are some suggestions. If I want to assess background knowledge is a little more tricky, but that's usually along the way. But if I want to assess sentence level comprehension, at the end of the chapter are some suggestions. So I pulled some of those forward today because the theme of our work is assessment. So I would love to know, how are you currently assessing comprehension? And Colleen, I know with the little ones that you work with, I know you're primarily working with foundational skills. So you can represent either from the bigger, broader staff or in any way you would like to. So and Lori, if you can think about it through the lens of Gen Ed or SPED, either one of those is great too. So how are you currently assessing comprehension? And anybody can go. How about you, Sarah? You want to start? And
Well,
if you say
actually,
I'm not, it's okay.
I'm glad you're mentioning this because, well, actually, a lot of the groups I run are more skill-based. So I
Yes.
actually am not running any comprehension groups right now, but there is a plan in place for our older kids, because now we're seeing like a really nice trend where our older kids are reading fluently, but what we're seeing is we're needing like some comprehension work. And this is the work that we're talking about, and how do we assess this and all of that. So right now, I would say I have used like the Easy CBM Proficient Reading, but
Okay.
that just to get like a baseline kind of to see what's going on with their comprehension. But I really like, look, I'm excited to dig into the book a little bit to look at some of that. I need help with that. So I'm glad we're doing this.
Oh, okay, excellent. Lori and Colleen, anything you would like to share about assessing comprehension?
Like you had said, I do the younger ones, so it's not no formal assessing, besides just reading stories, asking them questions about the stories. I know like in first grade, they have their decodable readers, and then there's questions that we ask after we read them with them. So that's basically what we do. Yeah.
Excellent, very appropriate, excellent.
Yeah.
Lori, how about you?
I
Anything?
use comprehension probes. We sometimes use easy CBMs. I have something called the Go Book Planning Toolkit, which has comprehension probes for every grade level and standard level. So I'll frequently use probes.
Oops, wrong way.
The Go Book Planning Toolkit.
So can you say that again? So just in case Sarah's taking notes, what is it? And it is standards based. There are comprehension questions that are related to the standards.
Right.
And
So,
comprehension questions related to just a concept.
The grade level. And the other thing that I've started using at the middle school and the high school is I use the SBAC teacher actions.
Okay.
So I'll look up an SBAC formatted question, and I use that based on the grade level or instructional level.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Thank you, everybody. Great job. So let's talk about how we think about what kind of an assessment is appropriate. So the first bullet is, do you want to measure the student's deeper knowledge of the text and have them understand that or demonstrate that understanding so you can see a window into their potential gaps? Standardized tests are very tricky to get a real window into potential comprehension gaps, because it may be that it may be the format of the assessment, it may be a multiple choice, it may be a close assessment where they fill in the blank. And a lot of times when they fill in those types of assessments, we don't really have a strong sense of, do they understand this concept, this skill, this topic? So if you really want to measure students' deeper knowledge of the text, I'm going to show you some other ways to do that today. If you really want to see, like if you want to use an easy CBM reading proficiency, it will tell you whether or not students are able to complete that multiple choice test or that closed format and demonstrate their comprehension in that way. So it gives you a window into whether comprehension is likely a problem, but it doesn't measure whether or not they have deep understanding of a text. So the resource that you shared, Lori, sounds like it would be more in line with bullet number 1. That it would be assessment questions and probes that help you understand whether they have a deep knowledge of this text. So you just have to decide, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to find out whether the child has a potential comprehension issue? Then you can use a standardized measure. If you're trying to figure out what is their deep comprehension with this text, then we have to use a different kind of a tool. And that's what we'll work on today. So it's really standardized versus formative. And we want to pick the right tool that's going to tell us what is going on with that child. So we're going to take a look at some of this little girl in this picture, she's just striking to me when I look at this picture. I'm like, I could sit and chat with that little one all day. She looks very intriguing, doesn't she? So we're going to take a look at some non-traditional formats for comprehension. So the idea of comprehension, it is similar to vocabulary. And I think we talked about this last year with vocabulary. The way you teach and the tools you would teach with vocabulary, the tools you would use to teach vocabulary can be the exact same tools that you use to assess vocabulary. And comprehension is 100% the same. So the tools that I might teach comprehension with, I can flip them in a nanosecond and use them to assess comprehension. So this is just an example. There are two tasks here. One is underline and highlight the main idea. So that would be if I were teaching. So they read the passage, they do the work. And I could even take those top two pieces off, underline and look back. But if I wanted to, I could take those pieces off and then I could use the bottom as an assessment. So one of the things I would love you to think about today is the ease of assessing comprehension. So I could use this particular passage as a teaching passage, or I could use this as an assessment tool, just taking those two directions off the top. Okay, so if I want to know, can the child identify the topic of the text? I give that prompt there. If I want to know, can the child find the main idea? I have that second prompt underneath there where they fill in the blank. If I want the child to be able to show me that they can find key details, I use those boxes. So that's an example. Here is another example. So I could use this type of a worksheet to teach comprehension and practice comprehension work, compare and contrast, or I could actually use this as an assessment tool. So if I were looking at this sheet as an assessment tool, I want to measure, are children able to identify and compare and contrast problem and solution? So maybe as a teaching tool, we work on the top row with characters. Who are the characters? They work together. They fill in the top row. Who are the Alicia's Kite characters? Who are Max Get Lost characters? Who are characters that, are there any characters that were in both? So we do the top part as a teaching. We skip the problem solution row, or problem and solution row. We go down to the theme row. We do some work and some teaching and we complete the bottom row. Now I want to assess, do the students have an understanding of problem and solution? So I use the middle piece as an assessment. So I then say, all right, boys and girls, so I talk about it, we teach about it. Now I say it's your turn. And I would like you to work with rows 2 and rows 3 to complete those particular rows. And I've had teachers do this in a different color. So they had colored pencils. And so the top row and the bottom row, they do in whatever color they want. And then the middle two, because it is an assessment, they do it in a different color. So it kind of pops out. So you could use this as partial or whole for assessing and or teaching. Or you could say on one day, together you do Alicia's Kite. And then the next day they do Max Gets Lost all on their own as an assessment. Because you're still identifying characters, identifying the problem, identifying the solution, and looking at the theme. You're just using a different text. So another example of how I can measure students' understanding of the concept I'm wanting them to learn and deeply understand the text that we are using. So before I go on any further, so here's one example, here's another, which is just the flip of a teaching tool flipped to an assessment tool. So thoughts or considerations. Hi, Becca, how are you? Thoughts or considerations from anybody just with these two pieces and that idea of flipping tools?
She said that. I know, but say that Kathy's here too.
Oh, Kathy's here too.
Hi, Kathy, how are you? Nice to see you. Oh, there's your hand. Yeah, good.
I like the idea of taking these graphic organizers. Oh, that's the word. The graphic organizers and using a tool that they're comfortable with.
That's right.
Like, because the idea is they've had experience with these graphic organizers. They know how to use them. So they're not fluttering
Right.
with using the what to do. So the only thing that we're measuring is not whether or not they can do it, but what do they know?
That's right, Becca.
And so I like the idea of using the graphic organizers. I'm interested in other ways to use them.
Yep, exactly. I really like what you said. We're not measuring, can they figure out what they're supposed to do? We are truly measuring their knowledge of these texts and their knowledge of these comprehension skills on the left, because we are using a tool to measure those that has eliminated that format, right? That might be unfamiliar for them. Yeah, thanks. Sarah, how about you?
Sorry, there's a lot going in my room right now.
That's okay, no worries. And you just tell me if you want to pass, I get
Yeah,
it.
no, that was great. I am taking copious notes, and I agree. Like, I think the graphic organizers are just a really nice way. And it is getting me thinking of other ways I have been assessing without maybe even realizing it, and just thinking, oh, I was just only thinking formative assessments and not those summative assessments. So make me feel a little bit better about the comprehension I've been doing. That helps. Yeah.
Good, yes. And it would be absolutely okay to take a graphic organizer such as this and have it represent a comprehension grade. You will have as good of information on their understanding of both the story and the skills as you would if you had a question with responses. If they can complete this work in a strong way, you have the evidence you need. Yeah, great. Lori, anything you would add?
The first one would be an excellent exit ticket for middle school.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. It shouldn't take too long if they really understand the concept. And it's actually just in a formative assessment fashion. Yeah, beautiful. All right, excellent job. So now let's go to the text. I just clipped some things from the text. So this is from text structure. And if you wanted to measure text structure or story elements from text structure, say you've been working on text structure and narrative text. So on the left tells you what you want to understand. So if you want to check the understanding of the purpose and the role of narrative text, these are some prompts you could give them. If you wanted to check, can students understand and recognize signal words, then you would give them sort the signal words into 3 categories, which ones were used in the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story. You could even give them, list the signal words that were used in the story to help us understand the structure of this text. So if you want to measure signal words, here's a prompt. If you want to know the purpose of signal words, you give them this kind of a prompt. Read the passage and underline the signal words. What did these signal words tell you about the story? Or I've seen, how do the signal words assist you with understanding what the author was trying to say? So if you want to check that, you give these kinds of prompts. If you want students to understand and recognize the story elements themselves or the text structure, here we are with a graphic organizer again, then they complete that graphic organizer like we just did. And that graphic organizer is tied to the elements of the story that you want them to know. So this is a perfect example. I want them to be able to identify characters, be able to identify the problem, identify the solution, and speak to the main topic or theme of the story. So that's really what that fourth one down there is give them a graphic organizer that lets them represent their knowledge in that way. So in chapter 6, and we're actually going to do text structure soon. If you want to measure text structure for narrative text, those are examples. Right after that, in chapter 6, if you want to measure informational text, there's a whole list of what do you want to measure and a whole list of this is how you could measure that particular thing. So at the end of the text structure book, you could either go in and pull this PowerPoint, or you could go to the end of chapter 6 when you want to know, do students understand the narrative text structure and what do I want to measure? And then it will give you some examples. So here's one where this is I agree or disagree. And this is about background knowledge. And it could be used as a pre-assessment. It could also be used as a post-assessment to actually just determine if students did build the knowledge base that you want them to have. As a pre-assessment, you will know what kind of background knowledge they have on the topic. And as a post-assessment, you will know what kinds of knowledge they gained based on this text. So you just give a model, but really it's not that hard. So there's a statement in the middle, and then there's an agree or disagree. And when I've seen this used, it's used best, I disagree or agree because, and then have students write in the why they would agree or disagree with this statement. So if it's a pre-assessment, I can see if it's all wacky. I'm like, ooh, they don't know anything about this topic. And I'm like, okay, then we'll be teaching quite a bit of knowledge about this topic. And if it is a post-assessment of the work I'm going to do, I want them to be able to defend their agreement or disagreement based on the texts that we have read and based on the knowledge that we have done. So this is in chapter 7 on background knowledge, and it's a sample. It's called an anticipation guide, but you could also use it as an assessment as well. So let me just do one more and then we'll have a quick conversation. So this is, for me, this is pretty elementary. I know you know all of this. These are just the types of text that you're trying to measure for comprehension, the comprehension skills, and then the signal words. So this one's really important for me for text structure. This actually comes out of chapter 6. That the signal words are in the middle column for that text structure. Then you have key questions you could ask and a graphic organizer. So Lapway, many years ago when we did text structure, we used something similar to this when we worked with it. So now I know if I wanted to measure, compare, and contrast, I know I have a set of signal words, I know I have some comprehension questions, and I know which graphic organizer I could use. All right, so will you chat into the chat? Actually, let's just unmeasure or unmute a little bit. So now that we've just gone through a couple of ideas, I can see, I heard 2 of you say, I'm beginning to think about the work and how to measure this in a non-standard way for comprehension. So what do you think might be some of the advantages of measuring comprehension in addition to things you've said already? I'll start with you, Lori.
Well, as always, after I spend a little bit of time with you, I go.
Go.
You know, psychologists, we just get so trained to stay in a box. And,
yeah.
You know, we measure for the broad picture, but we certainly aren't measuring for the skill level. Yes. And I'm already rewriting what we're doing at the middle school. I'm not worried about Becca. I know what she's doing, and I know she's going to take this and run. Aren't you, Becca?
Yes.
But the other aha is just that reconfirmation of how important for special education signal words are.
Yes. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Like when I think about text structure work, and we'll do more work of this deeper in future collaboration calls, but when I think about special education students and struggling students and comprehension, text structure for me is number one. Because if I don't see the structure, the text as organized in a certain way, and that I can see the skeleton of it, if I can't find signal words that tell me what the actual scaffolding is in the building, I think of text structure like a building, but it doesn't have any sheetrock on it, right? And it has all the structure, all the beams, all of the framing. That's what text structure is for me in an image, because it holds up everything else. It is the way that the work is organized, and it's my first schema. So within that, Lori, for me, the signal words are the thing that they're the blueprint. They're the thing that tells me what this structure is and all about it. So yeah, I feel the same way about text structure and really in particular signal words, so that students have an idea of what's going on. And that signal words are not equal. Not all words in a sentence are equal. And signal words hold a place of elevated importance. And so, yeah, that's great. Great feedback. How about you, Becca, Kathy, or Colleen?
So with some of our kiddos, you know, we're past the decoding stage. They're on to the next thing. And so this comprehension, and we worked so hard to get them there, but I've now have found myself like, what do I do? What's next, right? The what's next. And so this is that what's next. Right. And the nice thing about, if you hand a kiddo, like, again, I'm going to go back to it. If you hand a kiddo a graphic organizer that they're already comfortable with, because some of our kids, you know, we say, and it's a certain amount of truth, they don't test well.
Right. They don't.
Yes, they don't. But if you just hand it to them, you don't even have to say it's an assessment. You can, you know, for clarity, and you can. But if you know a kiddo hears the word test or assessment and anxiety goes through the roof, it gives you an out to let you, like, you don't have to use that terminology, but still measure comprehension.
Absolutely.
So I like that aspect of it.
Yeah, I do too, because what is it I really, really want to know? I really want to know, do you understand the text? Do you understand main idea? Do you understand compare and contrast? What kind of knowledge was built as we were working with this given text? You knew these things about this topic, and now you know a whole bunch more. Right. And if the format of the assessment is a barrier, and we're all in this project because we work with struggling readers, right? And that's how we all got here. So if what I really want to know is, do you understand the text and the pieces of comprehension that we're working, each of those strands on the rope, then I want to measure it in a way that actually has you bring that forward. Yes, I want you to learn the alignment of how SBAC measures. I do want you to learn that. I want you to know how ISAT is structured. I do want you to know the format of the questions. I do want you to know how to respond. I do want you to be able to handle those kinds of prompts. I do want you to handle some multiple choice sometimes, like in the unit assessments for Reach for Reading, right? So those are multiple choice. So I do want you to be able to handle multiple choice questions, to read a passage and be able to respond. I do know, though, that I may be measuring more of your ability to handle that format than I am how much you truly understand this piece of text.
Because with those formats, it's a fill in the bubble, circle the answer, click the button, right? And it's, you know, they might have a 1 in 3 chance of getting it right, or a 1 in 4 chance, and it's just like a roll of the dice sometimes for them. The quicker they're done, the better for them. Versus using these things that they're seeing everybody else use and do, usually we get more out of it,
Right.
out of the kids
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, that's right. So as I'm beginning to give kids comprehension assessments that can give me feedback to the child and can give me feedback to the parent. So they may show up on the EasyCBM probes as having a comprehension issue. That's all that does. Is it a standardized measure alerts you? Yep, they have a potential comprehension issue. Okay, that's good to know. Now, how deep is that issue? Number one. Number two, if I work on it, if I work on one strand on the rope, does their comprehension skills strengthen on that strand of the rope? And then I pick a tool that's ready for that. Yeah, that's really great. Lori, can you talk about the prompts just a little bit? I would love to hear a little bit about that in terms of what you see when students are responding to those comprehension prompts, and whether your sense is that it's genuinely measuring comprehension or if it's still staying in the format issue a little bit.
It's definitely staying in the format issue. And especially at the middle school, high school level, it may seem like we're measuring comprehension. We're not. We're measuring fluency, and we're measuring their memory, their ability to get from one part of the paragraph to the next part of the paragraph and remember what they read in the middle. So
Okay.
it isn't measuring a skill deficit in comprehension at all. And it is, what it does measure is an identification issue.
Okay.
Because sometimes I can pick out whether they even know what key details are or what a
Yes.
is. So it may measure that, but it's
Okay.
not measuring the lack of skill needed to comprehend the sentence.
Okay.
I think I would, like we've talked about before, in order to get a true measurement of that, I need to take the comprehension down to the comprehension probe down to a 1 or 2 sentence level probe.
Yeah. And are they bigger than that?
At the middle school, high school, always.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's great. All right. So Sarah, what are some of your thoughts just about just the discussion that we've had and some of the things that I showed on the screen?
So sorry, I had to miss a little bit of it.
It's okay.
Oh, sorry. I very much apologize. Yeah, this is just, I don't know if I have honestly too much to add right now because I did miss a lot, but this is helping me think through some things moving forward and just thinking about assessment and really like tailoring it to what we're trying to figure out, instead of just this broad comprehension can feel really broad, and just really thinking more about what am I really trying to assess? What do I really want them to know, and assessing that.
Yeah, excellent. So let's go back a little bit to sentence level or syntax. We did a collaborative call on syntax. If I really want to know how is the student doing with sentence level comprehension, can they handle those 4 troublemakers? Can they handle density? Can they handle length? Can they handle order? I have those out of order: length, density. I forgot the 4th one. Order. If they can they handle sentences that have 1 or 2 of those troublemakers? So I know at the syntax level. Then I give a prompt for comprehension that actually puts some of those pieces in. If I want to know text structure, I give them an assessment that is organized in a way for them to represent it. If I want to know inference, I actually set up the assessment so that I'm measuring inference. That's really what I love about the Blueprint book, is that at the end of every single strand, there are a couple of ideas for assessments and a couple of clips. But what I did is I went back into the middle of the chapter and I pulled the graphic organizers that were the teaching tool. So if there's any magic tip from this would be use your teaching tool as your assessment tool. And I think sometimes we make it so hard for ourselves. We have to go find comprehension assessments. We have to go find some tools. Actually, take the exact same tools that you used for teaching. So if you're teaching something, so Becca, you said, where do I go next? So maybe you're going to be teaching on, I'm trying to think of a couple, I'll go back to text structure. Say I'm going to be teaching on text structure. Go into the middle of the chapter of the text structure book where it gives you graphic organizers or it gives you some prompts. It gives you some tips for teaching and some sheets and tools in there. Go back into the teaching part and flip those to assessment. So if I were to really think about one thing that if I were teaching again, that I would put into my repertoire, it would be to do that work. And then keep those tools, those graphic organizers, those prompts, like at the bottom, those key details, 3 key details, keep those. Those are actually your evidence. They will serve you better in understanding comprehension than the unit assessments, like in Reach for Reading. Sarah, and I forgot what materials you guys use, Sarah. Can you remind me?
For comprehension.
Just your reading program.
Our tier 1 reading program is EL.
EL, that's right. Okay. So with EL and with Reach for Reading, your unit assessments are pretty big, number 1. And number 2, they may be in a multiple choice format. So the passage itself would be absolutely wonderful. Then just flipping that graphic organizer over or the recording tool that you want students to use, flip that into the assessment instead of the multiple choice. And I know here's what you have to do. You have to be willing to let go of that old grading mindset, right? Like they have 4 out of 5 answers right, that's this percent. So it does mess around a little bit with the idea of grading. So anytime you do this, you need to know that it is either formative assessment for you to use as a collection of evidence, or if you're going to flip it into a type of a grading mechanism, it does kind of mess with a potential grading system you have. How are you grading currently, or how are folks grading currently, Sarah, with assessment? I mean, comprehension.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, okay. Sorry,
Would
Sarah.
using a rubric be a way to do that?
Yes, absolutely.
I gotta answer myself. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, on the tier 1 level, it is a lot of what you're talking about with grading, like, 4 out of 5. I see a lot of multiple choice or short answer for the comprehension pieces, and it is very much, the assessment piece is very much that grading that you were talking about.
Yeah. So especially because we are working with tier 2 and tier 3 students in this project, having something in addition to that would be really helpful to have some ways. So I think about Hudson, which I know you know is pretty dyslexic. And if he had an opportunity to represent his comprehension in these kinds of mechanisms, he would do an amazing job. But to take a standardized measure for comprehension for him is pretty hefty and a different kind of a format than how I've taught him. So I taught him through these growth organizers. I taught him through these tools, but now I'm going to measure in a different format. So I don't always get that same picture. Yeah, great. Anything else you would add to the conversation, Lori, or Becca, or Colleen, or Kathy?
Are we in a breakout room?
No.
I would just have to reemphasize your point about grading. Good, excellent point. And you know, at the elementary level, we use standard standard-based grading, and that really works for us. But in the consideration of moving on to higher levels, we really go back to those percentages, and they're just not an accurate reflection of what our students know at all.
Yeah, and it's tricky. It's a dilemma. It is not a wide sweeping change that can be made easily. It actually just probably needs to be tucked into a teacher's repertoire as a body of evidence. It's tricky, very tricky. And at the same time, the research is becoming more and more strong that if we really want to measure comprehension, we really then have to give students a way to do that where they are demonstrating their comprehension. And that it's an interesting dilemma and a lot of conversation in our country right now about measuring comprehension. And about 20 years ago, a long time ago, I was working with a couple of researchers and they said, you know, comprehension measures actually never measure comprehension. And I thought, what is that? What is that? And then they started to talk about it. They said they're measuring format, they're measuring a student's ability to make some choices about the possibilities there, but it doesn't actually reflect to you what they do understand about the passage and deeply understand about the concept. So we just wanted to offer you some considerations today. We know you work with kids who may not always demonstrate their knowledge in a traditional way, and that you may need some other tools to gather some of that evidence as well. So well done today, everybody. I want to be sure to honor your time, and it's a small group, so we can get our chatting and work done pretty quickly. So the tips for you to know is that at the end of the blueprint, in every chapter, there are some assessment pieces for you. And then also within the chapter has all kinds of graphic organizers and tools that you can pull out and use for some assessment ideas if you want to. So thank you so much. I want to be sure you have the QR code for being here. Well done. You are a small and mighty cohort. It's always fun to see you all. And Sarah, we are pretty excited to get out into the schools. I head to Lapway next Friday, so that's going to be really fun. And we're excited to get out into schools and spend time. I think Shelby will get to see you, right?
Yeah, I think she's coming in February, and it's always
Yeah.
great for her to come.
Yeah,
Really excited.
yeah, that'll be great. Well, once you've done your QR code, ladies, give me a wave and let me know if there's anything you need. And I am here, and then we will see you all. Lapway, I'll see you next Friday. And Sarah, you have a good week, and Sarah and Shelby, you'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye, you guys. Take care.